Okay, welcome back, and like promised last time in the previous video, we're going to take a look at my Sony PlayStation 1 collection, and it's also one of the systems for me that has held a lot of memories. I love that system, and there's some great games on there, and you'll get to see quite a few of them. Sadly, some of them have already been packed prior to this, but you will get to see a good chunk, and if not, I'd say more than 75% of my collection, so enjoy. Alright, so starting things off with my PlayStation 1 collection, we have Midway Presents Arcade Hits, the Atari Collection 2, which has Paperboy, Gauntlet, Road Blaster, and of course we gotta give a shout out to Mark Cerny with Marble Madness. Do you see a trend here? I don't know. Next up we have Cool Borders 2, probably my favorite snowboarding game on the PlayStation 1. There was quite a few snowboarding games, and they got up to Cool Borders 4 for the PS1, but 2 was for me the peak, and had a sweet half-pipe level, and you could unlock an alien. Yeah, good times. Shadow Master. Next we have Omega Boost, a game made by Polyphony Digital, the guys who make Gran Turismo. You want cheesy cutscenes, FMV, this is the game for you, and it is a space mech shooter. It is a blast, honestly. If you look for any game for the PS1, that one is definitely underrated. And if you like cheesy FMV, all the more reason to get it. Another copy of Cool Borders 2, this time the Greatest Hits Edition, and for those of you who don't like buying Greatest Hits editions, you're dumb. There's less copies of those than the actual version. That's why they became Greatest Hits. Anyway. That's just my pet peeve. People who don't buy them because they're green. You're crazy. There's less of those. They're technically more rare because of it. South Park on the PlayStation 1. This is a great South Park game. It's great in the sense that it's really bad, but it's cheesy. It has the spirit of the show. It's a first-person shooter. It's really, really out there. And yeah, South Park for the PlayStation 1. It was also on the N64. So check out either one. Recommend the PS1 version though. And a game that people say is one of the worst licensed games ever made, Simpsons Wrestling for the PlayStation 1. I have to buy every Simpsons game when I come across it. This was no exception to that rule, and you know what? I actually had a lot of fun with it. It's bad, but if you expect it's bad going into it, you'll have a good time, especially if you're a Simpsons fan. A classic must-own. If you have a PlayStation 1, you must own Metal Gear Solid because it's a great game. And another must-own game for the system, Driver. Classic. And honestly, I had so much fun with that game. The only thing I have to say about that game was the tutorial at the very beginning was way more complex than it needed to be. But you know what? If you wanted to play that game, the game was like, fuck you, you better get good. So that way you kick ass at this game, and once you beat the tutorial, the game opens up. It's a lot of fun. I have loose copy of Alone in the Dark here. I have Jersey Devil, an underrated game as well for the PlayStation 1. In here is a whole bunch of PlayStation demo discs from official PlayStation magazine. I miss these so much, and like, there's a stack of them. It's not just one. Like, ugh, this is complicated. A stack of these things would fit in here because that's what you did. Good times. Lots of memories playing Tony Hawk 2 on the PlayStation demo disc. Ready to Rumble Boxing, a really fun boxing game that you could unlock Michael Jackson and play as him. Loose copy of Final Fantasy 10, or sorry, 9. 10 was on the PlayStation 2. Sorry, it's been a long day. But yes, that's there. A loose copy of Blood Omen, The Legacy of Kain, the first in that series on the PlayStation 1. Good times, good times. Grabbing from the top shelf now. We got Final Fantasy Tactics, a classic. This game will eat hours upon hours of your time if you let it, but it is totally worth it. It is so much fun. Final Fantasy Anthology, which is Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI, with added FMV, and the first time that we got it in North America also. Well, 6 was technically 3, so yeah, whatever. A complete version of Final Fantasy IX. As you can tell, I like Final Fantasy IX, that I keep backup copies. Looney Tunes Sheep Raider, an underrated puzzle platforming kind of... Well, I don't know really if it's platforming, but it's an underrated game. Disney's Treasure Planet, just the disc. Quake 2. Final Doom! And a really rare, hard to come by game, but also really great platforming puzzle game is Intelligent Cube. It's fun. You should check it out. I did a video on my channel and I featured that in that video. You should check that one out. Moving along, we have Greatest Hits version of Alien Trilogy, Speed Punks, in the UK I think it was called Speed Freaks. Good kart racing game. Also underrated. You should check it out. Definitely worth it. Hellboy, not a very good game. The Incredible Hulk, also not a very good game. Galaga Destination Earth, not a horrible game. Glover, also not a horrible game. Crypt Killer, this is by Konami. It's a light gun game. One of the better ones on the PlayStation, if you ask me. And we have Wreckin' Crew, another decent game there. And then, of course, we gotta mention Diablo 1 for the PlayStation 1. That's also a bit rare, especially complete. It took me a while to find that, and I was happy to add it to my collection because I like Diablo, and I like the fact that there was a version on the PlayStation 1. Moving along, we have Pocket Fighter by Capcom. It's like Street Fighter, but they're shrunken down, and yeah, it's cool. It's cutesy. It's definitely worth checking it out. Next we have Blazing Dragons, and we have Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. Yeah, that was remastered recently for the modern consoles as new and tasty, so you should definitely check that out. Alright, next pile. We have Reboot. It is all complete except for the manual. It has a reprint on there. I actually think this was from a library and that's why they did that. I don't know. Don't ask me. Jam-a-lammy. Complete except it's missing the, the manual, so it's not complete. It's partially complete. We have Robotron X, twin stick shooter. Of course, it is a sequel to the classic arcade game Robotron. And we got my favorite wrestling game. I spent a lot of time playing this back in the day, WWF Attitude. I just loved the character creator in this game at the time. To me, it was just so advanced. I'd make people I know, and we'd become wrestling teams, and we'd kick some ass. Yeah, fun times. I'm packing, too, if you didn't remember. I'm packing this shit away for when I move. Next up, I have Parasite Eve, a classic action RPG from Squaresoft, before it was Square Enix. If you don't know this game, track it down, play it, you'll love it. It's like horror, it was so good. Honestly, that's what cemented my love for RPGs back in the PlayStation era. That was one of them. And of course, can't forget the sequel, Parasite Eve 2. Not nearly as good as the first one, but it is a sequel. So for me, I like to own all of the games in the series if it's possible. And if it's not, well, then I wait until I can find it for cheap. Anyway, Silent Hill 1. PlayStation 1 classic game that you must own if you're into horror games. A very underrated hidden gem, in my opinion, is No One Can Stop Mr. Domino. It is like a puzzle platforming type of game where you play as a domino, and it's just so much fun. Oh my goodness. And it's not super rare as far as I'm aware. And we have a greatest hits copy of Mega Man 8. Some people love it, some people hate it. I want to know what you'd rate it. Because this is, for me, I had a good time playing it, and only thing I annoyed the hell out of me was Mega Man's voice acting in this game. But there was definitely a cool, like, snowboarding type scene later on in this game that made it totally worthwhile. Fun game. Definitely recommend it. But some people can't get over his voice acting, which I can agree, it's not the greatest. We have Alundra, the first one on the PlayStation 1, Working Designs game. And has some nice anime style cutscenes. It is a 2D, and also, oh, look at that manual. It's beautiful. I actually have the guide for this too. I got that with this game for a good price. Next up, we have another PlayStation 1 classic, Final Fantasy VII Complete. I love the Final Fantasy series so much back then. Alright, moving along. We're going through this. I'm almost done here. We have some more Mega Man. I have Mega Man X4, Mega Man X5, and Mega Man X6. So that makes up all the North American Mega Man X games on the series. It's been a long day. The traditional Mega Man games for the PlayStation 1. And continuing that along, we have Dino Crisis 1, Castlevania Chronicles. Great games. Definitely worth checking out. A special Castlevania Chronicles. It's basically like a remastered version of Castlevania 1. Alright, moving along. Grandia, another great RPG for the PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1 was an RPG powerhouse of a system. You would find so many great role-playing games for that system. It is, I can't speak enough of it. Now, you gotta have a lot of time to play those games. If you can make the time, you will not be disappointed. Alright, I'm gonna show you some long box games before we go into the final mix here. I have Warhawk. It's okay. Not my favorite game. We have Williams Arcade Greatest Hits long box. We have Defender, Joust, Defender 2, Robotron, 2084, and Sinstar, and Bubbles. Never played Bubbles. Should check that one out. Had it for a long, long time. Alright. And my last two that I have with me, I also had one other long box game, that was D. I have that in one of my other videos there if you want to see that game. Anyway, moving along. WrestleMania, the arcade game, another must-own wrestling game for the PlayStation 1. If you're a fan of wrestling games, this is, like it says, it's an arcade game. It plays like the arcade, and you have Doink, Bret the Hitman Hart, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Lex Luger that you can play as. It's a lot of over-the-top fun, and I mean it, it's over-the-top. And my last long box PlayStation 1 game is Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. A horrible Mortal Kombat game, but if you are going to play this game, play this version. You have the FMV cutscenes that just add so much cheesy goodness to this game that it kind of makes dealing with the horrible jumping mechanics and overall the horrible controls. Yeah, Sub-Zero. I don't recommend buying that unless you really want to torture yourself. Next up, we have Gauntlet Legends. As you can tell, I'm a fan of the Gauntlet series, and Gauntlet Legends is definitely one worth owning. And going along, we are almost done here. I've got a few more games. We have my last Final Fantasy game, which is Final Fantasy VIII. I wasn't overly huge on this, however, I did enjoy the card game in this one here. Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, I thought were a little bit better, but let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Next up, we have Lunar Silver Star Story Complete and Lunar 2 The Eternal Blue Complete. Sadly, I lost the boxes that came around it and all the goodies, so it's just the games and the manual. But, hey, Lunar, great series. Play them. Love them. Great anime cutscenes in these games. And voice acting. That's not completely horrible like Resident Evil was back then. Next up, we have my last two, my prides and my joys of my PlayStation 1 collection. Again, a lot of the other stuff that you're not going to see has been in the previous videos and have already been packed up. So this is the last two that you're going to get for this video, and that is Skull Monkeys and Googly Eye. Come on, there you are, Googly Eye. Ooh, love that. Great claymation, stop motion style to this game, and it's a platformer, which PlayStation 1 needs a lot more of those, in my opinion. Oh, PlayStation in general needs a lot more of those. My last one is a game by Enix, and does not go cheap anymore. It's Valkyrie Profile. I actually have a complete Valkyrie Profile collection. Again, I'm a big fan of this RPG series. Great art style. Definitely worth tracking down a copy of this. If you cannot find this but you want to play it, check out the PSP games, because it's pretty much a remastered version of this. That has been my Sony PlayStation 1 collection. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. Please hit the subscribe button, and if you like my games, give it a thumbs up. Moving along, we are going into some Nintendo DS next. Thank you very much for watching. I'm RetroForward Dave. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at retro_forward and on Facebook at RetroForward Gaming. Have a good night, people.